Hey gang, I've aimed to talk about this knife tonight in a video. I've gone and got myself another Spyderco Delica 4. This one purchased from the always excellent Blades of Oz, a really good spot to check out for knives if you are in Australia. He gets a cool range, seems to get nice, surprising, unique things. This is the Zome green Delica. Let's look at that. As you can see, it's a collection of different shades of green. Whoops! On the usual FRN handle. Very much a standard Delica. Some minor changes I've noticed, having owned a Delica previously. Just a few things like the way that the blade tang is inscribed. Seems to be more lasered than engraved. Just maybe a slight larger pronouncement of the drop tip. I don't know though. I have been handling a Mantra for far too long. So it's really interesting. This was kind of the first proper knife that I got when I was just starting out. I had a Leatherman Crater C33 for a long time, and I thought that was all I needed. And then I eventually thought of going one notch higher, which was the $100 bracket in Australia, and that was a big thing for me to cross, which is hilarious thinking back now. Now I'll drop that every couple of weeks on a knife, and this was something I'd build up for weeks and months to save for. It's really strange. So I got a Delica, and then I used it like crazy for about a year, and then I started to get drawn towards the sort of fancier knives, things like paramilitary 2s and Benchmade 940s and things that costed over the $200 mark. And for some reason I thought I was a little bit too cool for the standard classic EDC knife that is the Spyderco Delica. I thought, oh, that's getting a bit archaic. All these new knives have much cooler features, but when they released the HAP 40 Delicas and Enduras, I wanted one. And when they released the ZDP Racing green ones, I wanted one. And now they've released this Zome green one, and I wanted one, so I've gone and got one. Not much has changed. It's still VG10 steel, flat ground. The knife blade is still about 3 inches in total, 3 inches cutting length. The clip is still the same. It's the non-deep carry Spyderco clip. But the fact that everything stayed the same and continues to remain the same, it's kind of refreshing having it back again. So the Delica for me is kind of like, and it still probably is, the go-to EDC knife for someone who says, oh, what's a good knife to carry every day? No matter where you live, I'd say a Delica is a pretty good bet. It does a lot of things right. It's nice and basic. It doesn't seem particularly tactical or aggressive because of things like the kind of goofy spider hole and the lockback construction. It's not a high-speed deployment knife. It's just it's a lockback. It's very much kind of just a notch over a traditional kind of lockback, really. It's still even got a bit of that walk and talk. They do loosen up over time, and you can play with the pivots, but it's definitely nothing that's going to scare too many people, unless they're absolutely knife phobic, and that they'd most likely be put off by a Swiss Army knife blade or something similar. So yeah, you're just taking a bit of a step back from super high-speed knives like the paramilitary 2 with its cool compression lock and G10 slab handles and sort of size up, and even playing with things like the Mantra, nice flipper knives. I've had some ZT knives. I've had a whole bunch of sort of cooler, more complex knives, but still very nice to have a Delica back in-house. It is a really good comparison knife. It's kind of like a benchmark blade, and other channels and other people sort of, I'm not saying anything new here when I talk about it in that sense. It's made in Seki City, Japan, comes crazy sharp, has a just under 3mm thick blade, which is really good for slicing. You compare that to the paramilitary 2 blade, which is also very good for slicing, and you can see it's about half as thick, really. Not perhaps not half, but it's about 2/3 as thick, so it does some great slicing work. The VG10 steel is good entry-level steel. It's, in my opinion, better than the 8CR13 stuff that you'll pay, maybe $30 or so less for, but get a knife of about the same size and capability. It's very highly corrosion resistant, and one of the things that this knife's always going to do right is the ergonomics. Like lots of Spydercos, they sacrifice the appearance for the comfort in hand, and this is just a perfect knife illustrating that point. Holding it like this is one of the more comfortable grips you can get on a pocket knife. It's not as super ergonomic for crazy long-term cutting as, say, your Manix 2. This one here melts into your hands a little bit better, and it has the optional forward finger choil. as well. So it doesn't have anything fancy like that going on, but it's got a really good basic singular grip, and I like that a lot. The things that I'm not so flash about the knife on, let's have a chat. The black pocket clip is a changeable thing. You can strip the black off, which I generally will do once it starts to get dinged up. However, on this green, I don't think it's as bad looking as it looks on, say, the orange ones or the blue ones or things like that. I think they take to a silver pocket clip a bit better, which is easily done. Just strip it off on a belt, like a buffing wheel or something like that. No problems at all. It is just paint. It comes off. Very, very screw heavy up the top. That's kind of jarring to the eye. Look how many screws there are in that tiny little section. I think they stand out against the green even more than usual. Often they are black screws, I think, depending on the colour scheme. So very, very kind of abundance of screws. I think a deep carry clip which goes over its screws would look a bit better. As usual, the blade tang not covering is something that kind of bothers me, because it does tend to catch on your keyring in your pocket. So that's just the only other real flaw I can think of with the knife. But everything else, it does what it says on the box. You're not going to, if you go into the knife expecting a high speed, fun to play with knife, you're probably going to be disappointed. But if you go in looking for something just super reliable, non-threatening, for everyday use, it's light, it's 2.4 ounces, it is strong, it's got partially hollowed out steel liners. It's thin in the pocket and it's thin on the blade. You're not going to be disappointed, and you won't really need to take any of that other stuff into account. Let's do some size comparisons. So this is the knife open. This is it next to a Ontario Rat 1. See, the Rat 1 is definitely a size up. This is it next to a Spyderco Paramilitary 2. Again, much bigger knife. This is it next to the Spyderco Manix 2. Again, a much sort of bigger, stockier knife. Much more suited for long-term, say, taking to work if you cut up boxes all day, something similar. This Delica, purely an everyday carry blade. But it brings me to the Mantra. The reason the Mantra is so good is that it takes this Delica platform and does some things that I really like. So you can see here, the blade is slightly longer, but mainly longer in cutting edge rather than actual metal protruding from handle. So the Mantra's cutting edge comes all the way back to this notch here, whereas the Spyderco Delica has this blank part sort of here. Yes, there's a blank part on the Mantra, but the flipper tab is incorporated into that. So you get probably an extra ½ inch of cutting edge on a knife that is really the same size. The frame lock, I'm not too bothered about. I wouldn't mind if they kept the lock back, doesn't fuss me. But just in terms of other design elements, you'll notice here on the Mantra, the blade tang is hidden once again. There's no protrusion there. How they do that, I'd need to probably take the knife apart and look at what is utterly different. There are some slight variances in the way the handles are sculpted, but it's not quite within my pay grade to be able to work that out. But I'm sure if it can be done on this one, it could be done on this one. Maybe the lockback mechanism is what is causing that. I don't know. But again, the Mantra has a bit of a pointier tip as well, which is really personal preference. I think I prefer, on an EDC knife, I think I prefer the slight drop because it does toughen that point up a little bit. This is a little bit more on the delicate side. Not anywhere near as sort of the clipped delicacy that is the paramilitary, but definitely more on the delicate side. But I think in general, and the wire clip being deep carry versus the spoon style clip not being deep carry, I think a great thing for Spyderco to do on the Delica 5 is to use this Mantra template, keep it locked back, keep it PC, keep it low cost, use FRN, use the lock back, that's fine, but just take a few of these sort of more swoopy design cues from it, and I reckon that'd be a really, really great knife. It's what I would recommend the direction they went in the Delica 5 if they were to listen to me. So overall, what do you think of the Zome Green Delica? It's $110. Is that a good buy? Well, 2 years ago it really was, but lately there's been an influx of great knives from, let's face it, China, coming out that are doing a lot more for a lot less. So in terms of value, I think this has probably taken a couple of hits. So you're getting FRN VG10, a great design, but other knives are well designed as well. So the benchmark knife this year for high value knives, and then you've always got your rat number 2s and hell even your rat 1s, but the Real Steel E571, you can see in my review on that, reviewed very highly. That does a lot for your $80 that you pay for that. It is also a pure EDC knife, not particularly for hard use, but it's a flipper as well, which obviously might win or fail for you depending on how, you know, dramatic you like your knife drawing to be. But it does do a better steel and pricier handle material, being steel over this FRN, and probably a I wouldn't say sturdier built, but you know, just as well built knife for about $30 less. So the value side of things probably has changed since my 2014-ish review of the Delica blue one that I originally had. So that's just something to take into account as well. But overall, if you are looking for a Delica and the Zome green does appeal to you, get some good close up of that, then I would still suggest pulling the trigger, especially if you're getting a knife for someone that perhaps doesn't already have a knife, just wants something that is simple enough and memorable enough from something they've used before with the backlock, but also has some cool sort of one-hand opening, ergonomic type features that things like your Buck 110 don't really have. Thanks very much for watching, dudes. I'll see you in the next video.